She let a wounded cowboy sleep in her barn next day. He signed over 2,000 acres in her name. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Today, we have a tale of kindness, mystery, and an unexpected twist that will leave you speechless. Let's meet our main character. The morning light filtered softly through the barn's wooden slats, casting long shadows on the floor. Sarah awoke with a start, the events of the night before rushing back to her in a blur. She had helped the injured cowboy settle down, but now the barn was still, and the air felt strangely quiet. For a moment, she sat up, rubbing her eyes, unsure if it had all been a dream. She looked over at the corner where the cowboy had been resting, but he was no longer there. Panic surged through her chest. Had he left? Just as the thought crossed her mind, she heard the faintest sound coming from outside the barn, a low, gravelly cough followed by the unmistakable sound of boots scraping against the dirt floor. Sarah rushed to the door and pushed it open to find the cowboy standing weakly, his hand pressed against the barn wall for support. His face was still pale, but his eyes were sharp, focused. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. "You need to rest. You're not well." The cowboy gave a small, crooked smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm fine," he said, his voice rough. "Just needed some air. I don't like feeling like I'm a burden." Sarah was taken aback by his words. "You're not a burden," she replied quickly, stepping closer to him. "You're hurt, and I'm just trying to help." The cowboy hesitated for a moment before nodding slowly, his gaze dropping to the ground. "I appreciate it," he said quietly. "I'm not used to people being kind to me. It's been a long time." There was something in his tone that made Sarah pause, a heaviness in his voice that hinted at a past he wasn't willing to talk about, but she didn't press him. She could sense that he needed time to heal, both physically and emotionally. "You don't have to explain anything," she said softly. "Just rest. Let me help you." For a brief moment, the cowboy didn't move. Then, he finally nodded, allowing Sarah to guide him back inside. As he settled back onto the straw, she moved to fetch him some water, feeling an unexpected connection with him. The act of caring for him, the vulnerability in his eyes, it stirred something in her that she hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if she was taking care of someone who mattered, someone who was worth the effort. Over the next few days, Sarah continued to nurse the cowboy back to health. Each day, she found herself growing more curious about him, but he remained closed off, never revealing much about his life. He would answer her questions with short replies, but never went into detail about where he was from or how he ended up in such a sorry state. One afternoon, as Sarah was helping him walk a short distance around the barn, he suddenly stopped and turned to her. "I owe you more than just my life," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "What you've done for me, it's more than anyone has ever done. I need to repay you." Sarah was about to protest when he raised his hand to stop her. "No," he said firmly, "you don't understand. What I have, I can share. I don't want to leave you with nothing." Sarah was confused, unsure of what he meant. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. The cowboy took a deep breath before looking at her with a new intensity. "I own land," he said quietly. "More land than most people can imagine. And I want you to have it. It's yours." Sarah stood frozen, her heart racing as the words registered in her mind. "What? No, you can't be serious." She shook her head, unsure whether she had heard him right. "I've heard of land deals, but this, it's not a deal," he interrupted gently. "It's a gift. You helped me when no one else would, and I won't forget that. I'm signing over 2,000 acres of land to you, Sarah. It's the least I can do." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, Sarah felt as though the world had stopped spinning. The weight of his offer pressed down on her, and she could hardly believe what she was hearing. 2,000 acres? It was unimaginable, too much to accept, too much for someone like her to even comprehend. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words caught in her throat. How could she accept something so huge, so life-changing? I can't, she whispered, shaking her head. I can't take that. It's too much. But the cowboy just looked at her, his expression firm yet kind. You can, Sarah. You've earned it. You gave me something that no one else would have a second chance. She stood there, feeling the gravity of the moment. Everything she had known, the struggle, the loneliness, the doubts, was suddenly being offered a chance to change. All because of one act of kindness. But could she really accept it? Could she take this gift and let it change her life forever? Sarah stood frozen in disbelief, her mind racing with what the cowboy had just offered. 2,000 acres? It was unimaginable. She could hardly grasp the enormity of it. She had always struggled to make ends meet, living in a world where every penny mattered. And now here she was, being handed an entire estate. It felt like a dream, like something out of a fairy tale, but the reality of the situation was overwhelming. Her hands trembled as she tried to form words, but nothing came out. The cowboy, seeing her hesitation, continued in his calm, steady voice, I know it's a lot to take in, but this is the least I can do for you. You've shown me kindness when I was at my lowest, and I can't just walk away from that. You deserve more than what you've had. Sarah shook her head slowly, still trying to process his words, her mind racing. But I don't know what to do with that much land. I've never had anything close to that in my life. It's too much. I'm just a farm girl. The cowboy's eyes softened, and he stepped closer to her, his expression full of understanding. I get it, he said gently. I never wanted this land, really. It's just a piece of property to me, but you deserve something more than just a struggling life. I know this sounds crazy, but trust me, this is what I want. I want to give it to you. Sarah stared at him, feeling a lump rise in her throat. She wasn't used to receiving such generosity, let alone from someone she barely knew. She had spent so many years fighting to hold on to what little she had, that the idea of accepting something this big, this life-changing, felt impossible. But deep down, she knew there was something about him, something different. He wasn't just giving her land, he was giving her a chance to change everything. After a long, uncomfortable silence, Sarah finally found her voice. I don't know. It feels like a dream. It's just too much for me to handle. I'm not sure I'm worthy of this. The cowboy gave a small smile, but there was a sadness in his eyes. You don't have to feel worthy, Sarah. You've done something for me that no one else has, and this is my way of saying thank you. No one ever believed in me the way you have. He paused, his gaze softening as he took a deep breath. I don't expect anything in return. I just want to see you succeed. Take the land, build your future, and don't let anything hold you back. Sarah looked down at the ground, her hands still trembling, but something inside of her began to shift. It was like a small spark of hope had been lit, something she hadn't felt in years. Maybe she didn't have to keep struggling. Maybe there was a way out of this endless cycle. She could do something with this land, something she had always dreamed of but never thought possible. But the doubt still lingered. She wasn't sure how to move forward, how to accept such a generous gift without feeling like she was taking advantage of him. She looked up at the cowboy again, her heart racing. Why are you doing this? I don't even know you. Why me? The cowboy's expression grew serious, his eyes locking onto hers. I may be a stranger to you, but I've been through things you can't even imagine. I've seen the worst of people, and I've been let down too many times to count. But you, he paused, a flicker of emotion crossing his face. You showed me something real. You didn't ask for anything, and you didn't hesitate to help me. That kind of kindness, it's rare, and I'm not going to forget it. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had always tried to be kind, always tried to help others, but hearing someone acknowledge that made her feel seen, like maybe all the struggles she had endured weren't in vain. She took a deep breath, the weight of his words settling into her heart. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I'll take the land, but I promise I'll make something of it. I won't waste this chance. The cowboy nodded, a small, knowing smile crossing his face. I believe in you, Sarah. You've got this. And just like that, everything changed. Sarah was no longer just a farm girl struggling to make ends meet. She was someone with a future, someone with the potential to build something beautiful. She had been given a gift, But more than that, she had been given a chance, an opportunity to turn her life around and create something lasting. It wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in years, Sarah felt a sense of hope flood her heart. She wasn't alone anymore. And that was the first step towards the future she had always dreamed of. The days that followed felt like a blur to Sarah. She had spent years battling against the odds, struggling to make ends meet on her small farm. But now, with 2,000 acres of land handed to her, it was as if the weight of the world had shifted. The cowboy had left her the land, and his words echoed in her mind. Take the land, build your future. It felt surreal, but deep down, she knew she couldn't let this opportunity slip away. Every day, she walked around the property, trying to make sense of what to do next. The land stretched out before her like an open canvas, but she had no idea where to start. She wasn't a landowner. She wasn't a businesswoman. She was just a farm girl, and this felt like stepping into a world she didn't know. But then, a new resolve began to form inside her. She had never been one to back down from a challenge, and this was no different. She wasn't going to let fear keep her from doing something great. Slowly, Sarah began making plans. She reached out to local farmers, contractors, and even some friends who knew the land better than she did. She gathered information, made calls, and started to piece together what could be a sustainable future. It wasn't easy. There were moments when Sarah questioned her decision, when the magnitude of what she had inherited felt too overwhelming. There were sleepless nights when she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was truly capable of turning this into something worthwhile. But each time the doubt crept in, she reminded herself of the cowboy's words. "I believe in you, Sarah." Those words became a lifeline, a tether that kept her grounded when everything around her felt uncertain. A few weeks later, as the sun set over the fields, Sarah stood at the edge of the land, watching the horizon. She was no longer the girl who had struggled to make ends meet. She was someone with a purpose, someone who was building something of her own. The land was beginning to take shape, with crops being planted, small buildings being repaired, and the idea of a future finally starting to feel real. But just as things were starting to settle into place, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. She had been out in the fields, inspecting the work when she heard the sound of tires crunching over gravel. Looking up, she saw a familiar face, the cowboy. He had returned. Sarah felt a mix of emotions as he stepped out of the truck, his strong presence reminding her of the day he had offered her the land. He had been a stranger then, but now, he felt like something more, someone who had changed her life in ways she couldn't fully understand. "I thought I'd come check on how things are going," he said, his voice calm but with a hint of warmth. Sarah smiled, her heart racing a little at his unexpected visit. "It's going better than I ever imagined," she said, looking over the land that was slowly starting to transform. "I'm starting to feel like this is where I'm supposed to be." The cowboy nodded, his gaze shifting across the fields. "I'm glad to hear that. You're doing a good job, Sarah. I knew you would." The words warmed her. But there was something else in his eyes, something deeper, something that made Sarah wonder if he was here for more than just a casual check-in. "Thank you," she replied, but her voice faltered slightly. "I couldn't have done it without you. You gave me the chance I never thought I would have." He paused for a moment before stepping closer, his eyes locking with hers. "I didn't give you the land, Sarah," he said quietly. "I gave you a chance to find yourself, and from what I see, you're doing just that." Sarah felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had been so focused on proving herself, on building something from nothing, that she had almost forgotten the most important thing, the gift he had truly given her. It wasn't just the land, it was the belief that she could do it, that she was capable of something greater than she had ever imagined. "I won't let you down," she whispered, feeling the weight of his words settle deep inside her. "I'll make this work, I promise." The cowboy smiled, a genuine, soft smile that seemed to carry with it years of experiences, both good and bad. "I know you will, Sarah," he said, his voice filled with certainty. "You've already made me proud." And just like that, Sarah knew that this wasn't just about the land, or the crops, or the buildings. This was about her journey, her strength, and her ability to take what she had been given and turn it into something beautiful. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt truly seen. The cowboy had given her more than just land. He had given her the power to change her future, and in doing so, had changed her own perception of who she was. She wasn't just a farm girl anymore. She was a woman who had the world at her feet, and with the cowboy's belief in her, she knew that anything was possible. Weeks passed, and Sarah's life began to transform in ways she had never imagined. The land that had once felt like an overwhelming burden was now taking shape under her careful guidance. Crops were thriving, small buildings were being repaired, and a sense of pride was growing inside her. It wasn't easy, but it was hers to shape, and every step forward felt like a victory. As the work on the farm continued, Sarah found herself growing more confident, more capable, but there was still one thing on her mind: the cowboy. He had been there when she needed him most, offering her not just the land but the belief that she could turn it into something extraordinary. Despite the growing success of her farm, she hadn't heard from him much since that first visit. She often wondered if he was still keeping an eye on her from a distance, or if he had moved on. She didn't expect him to stay involved, but a part of her hoped he would come back, even if just for a visit. One bright morning, as Sarah stood outside watching the workers repair a barn, she saw a familiar truck rolling down the dirt road. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the cowboy's vehicle. He was back. He stepped out of the truck with a casual smile, his eyes scanning the land that had now become a symbol of Sarah's hard work and determination. "I see things are going well," he said, his voice carrying the same warmth that had comforted her months ago. Sarah smiled, her heart swelling at the sight of him. "It's more than I could have hoped for," she said. "The land is starting to show promise." The cowboy nodded, taking in the progress. "I'm proud of you, Sarah. This is more than just a farm now. It's a testament to what you can do when you put your heart into it." His words filled her with gratitude, but there was also a small sense of uncertainty. She had built this with her own hands, but a part of her still felt like she owed him something more than just her thanks. "I don't know how to express how much this means," Sarah said softly. "You didn't just give me land. You gave me a chance to change everything. I'll never forget that." The cowboy gave her a reassuring smile, one that seemed to speak volumes. "You don't owe me anything, Sarah. You've earned everything you've built here." He paused, his expression softening. "But there's something I've been thinking about." Sarah tilted her head, sensing the change in his tone. "What is it?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. The cowboy took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts. "I never meant to just give you land and walk away," he began, his voice steady. "I know this is your dream now, but I've been wondering if I could be a part of it. I've seen what you've done here, and I think there's more we could do together." Sarah's eyes widened, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" she asked, unsure if she was hearing him correctly. He stepped closer, his gaze intense but gentle. "I've spent a lot of time working in the business side of things, and I know how hard it can be to navigate all of it on your own. If you'd have me, I'd like to help you with the logistics, the planning, and maybe even some of the bigger projects. I want to see this place grow, and I believe we could make it something truly special." Sarah stood still, absorbing his words. She had never expected this, never imagined that the cowboy, who had given her the land in the first place, would now offer to be a part of her vision. She had come so far on her own, but the idea of having someone with experience, someone who believed in her, by her side, was tempting. She thought about it for a moment, feeling the weight of the decision. "I've been doing this on my own for so long," she said quietly. "I don't know if I can accept help, especially not from you. You've already done so much for me." The cowboy's gaze softened, his expression understanding. "You don't have to do everything alone, Sarah. I'm not here to take over. I'm here to support you, to help you make this dream even bigger. I believe in what you're doing here, and I think we can do even more together." Sarah felt her heart swell with emotion. The idea of working together, of sharing this journey with someone who cared, was more than she had ever imagined. She had fought so hard to build this life, but the thought of having someone alongside her, someone who believed in her, made the future seem less daunting. "Okay," she said softly, her voice filled with determination. "Let's do it. Let's make this place everything it can be." The cowboy smiled, and in that moment, Sarah realized that she wasn't just building a farm. She was building a future with someone who truly understood her, someone who had given her more than land. He had given her a partnership, a chance to grow together. And as they stood there, looking out over the land, Sarah knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Months passed, and Sarah's farm continued to grow, both in size and in promise. The cowboy, whose name was Jack, became more than just a figure from her past. He was now her partner in every sense of the word. Together, they worked tirelessly, combining his business acumen with her deep knowledge of the land. They planned, organized, and made decisions that would shape the future of the farm, each day bringing them closer to their goal. There were still challenges, unexpected weather, fluctuating crop prices, and the constant pressure to succeed, but they faced everything together, and the weight of it all felt a little lighter with Jack by her side. Sarah found herself leaning on him in ways she hadn't expected. His calm demeanor balanced her restless energy, and his belief in their shared vision fueled her own determination. They often worked late into the evenings, walking the fields together, discussing ideas, and watching the sunset in comfortable silence. As the seasons changed, Sarah began to realize something she hadn't anticipated. She was falling for Jack. It wasn't just the partnership or the success they were building together. It was something deeper, something that went beyond the farm. Jack had become more than a business partner. He had become someone she cared about, someone she trusted completely. It was a feeling that both excited and scared her. She had never let herself feel this way about someone, especially not after all the years of struggle. But she couldn't deny the connection that was growing between them, and it was becoming impossible to ignore. One evening, as they walked along the edge of the fields, Sarah finally spoke what had been on her mind for weeks. "Jack, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice softer than usual. Jack stopped and turned to face her, his expression serious. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his tone gentle. Sarah hesitated for a moment, her heart racing. "I think I'm starting to. I think I've been falling for you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack's face softened, and for a moment, he said nothing. He just looked at her, his eyes filled with a warmth that made her heart flutter. "Sarah," he finally said, his voice low and full of emotion. "I felt the same way for a long time, but I didn't want to rush things. I wanted to make sure that everything we've built here was real before I said anything." Sarah's heart skipped a beat at his words. She hadn't expected him to feel the same way, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel even more real. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," she said, her voice shaky but sincere. "Not after everything I've been through. But with you, I feel like I've finally found a place where I belong." Jack stepped closer to her, his presence comforting and steady. "You've always had a place here, Sarah," he said softly, reaching out to gently take her hand. "You belong with me, with this land, with everything we're building together. I want you to know that you're not alone anymore. We've got each other. And we've got a future." The words hung in the air between them, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. She wasn't just building a farm, she was building a life. And now, with Jack by her side, she knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah and Jack's relationship deepened. They worked side by side, not just as business partners, but as something more. There was a tenderness between them now, a shared understanding that went beyond the farm. They laughed together, shared quiet moments, and supported each other through every challenge. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and with it, Sarah's confidence blossomed. She no longer felt like the same girl who had once struggled to survive. Now, she felt like a woman with a future, someone capable of turning her dreams into reality. One afternoon, as they were walking through the orchard they had planted together, Jack stopped and turned to face Sarah. "I've been thinking," he said, a glint of something serious in his eyes. "About us, about the future, and I think it's time we make this official." Sarah looked at him, her heart suddenly racing. "What do you mean?" she asked, unsure if she was hearing him right. Jack smiled, pulling out a small box from his pocket. "Sarah, will you marry me?" he asked, his voice full of love and sincerity. For a moment, Sarah was speechless, her mind spinning with emotions. She had never expected this, but standing there, with Jack offering her a life together, she knew that this was exactly what she wanted. "Yes," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. "Yes, I will." Jack grinned, pulling her into a tight embrace. As they stood there in the orchard, the land stretching out before them, Sarah knew that her life had changed in ways she had never imagined. The journey had been long, but she had found her place, her purpose, and her love. And together, they would continue to build the future they had always dreamed of. The wedding was a quiet, intimate affair, held on the farm where everything had begun. Sarah had never imagined her life would lead her here, standing next to Jack, the man who had turned her world upside down in the best possible way. As they exchanged vows, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the land they had worked so hard to build together. It was a day filled with love, hope, and a promise of a future that had seemed impossible just a year ago. The past months had been a whirlwind of changes, challenges, and triumphs. But as Sarah looked at Jack, she knew that nothing could stop them now. They had come so far, and now they were ready to face whatever the future held, together. After the ceremony, they stood together on the porch of their new home, overlooking the sprawling fields that had become a symbol of their hard work and shared dreams. "It feels like a dream, doesn't it?" Sarah whispered, her head resting against Jack's shoulder. Jack smiled, his arm wrapped around her. "It does," he agreed, "but it's our dream, and it's real." The sound of birds chirping and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze were the only noises that filled the air, creating a peaceful, serene moment that felt like the calm after the storm. Sarah had come a long way from the girl who had struggled to make ends meet. She had fought for everything she had, but she had also found something more: love, partnership, and a future full of possibility. She had once feared she would always be alone, but now, standing beside Jack, she knew she had found her place. The journey to this moment had been long, but it had been worth every struggle, every tear, every sleepless night. Together, they had built something beautiful, something that was theirs, and now they would continue to build it, side by side, for the rest of their lives. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, Sarah and Jack sat together on the porch, holding hands, the world at peace around them. "I never thought I could have all of this," Sarah said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "The land, the farm, you. I never thought it was possible." Jack squeezed her hand, his voice steady and sure. "You did it, Sarah. You made it possible, and I'm just lucky to be a part of it." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with love. "I'm the lucky one," she whispered, resting her head on his shoulder again. "I didn't know what I was missing until I found you." They sat in comfortable silence for a long while, simply enjoying the moment, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Sarah felt ready to embrace it. She wasn't afraid anymore. She had the love of her life by her side, and with Jack's support, she knew there was nothing they couldn't overcome. The next chapter of their lives was just beginning, and Sarah was excited to see where it would take them. They had built a future from nothing, and now they had each other to share it with. As the night grew darker, the sound of crickets filled the air, and Sarah and Jack exchanged a look of quiet understanding. They had fought for everything they had, and now, they were ready to fight for the life they would build together. The stars above seemed to shine just a little brighter that night, as if they too were celebrating the love and the journey that had brought Sarah and Jack to this point. The journey was far from over, but for now, they were content, knowing that they had everything they needed to face whatever came next, together. As Sarah and Jack settled into their new life together, the farm continued to thrive. The crops flourished, the animals were healthy, and the community around them began to notice the changes. What had once been a struggling piece of land was now a symbol of success, not just for Sarah and Jack, but for everyone who had helped them along the way. Sarah had come so far from the days when she had first inherited the farm, unsure of what to do or how to move forward. Now, she was confident, proud, and most importantly, happy. She and Jack had built something real, something lasting. The partnership they had created was stronger than ever. They didn't just work together, they complemented each other. Jack's knowledge of the business side of things balanced perfectly with Sarah's deep connection to the land. They were a team, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. One afternoon, as Sarah stood by the fence, watching Jack manage the cattle, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had always loved the farm, but now it felt different. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving. Jack walked over to her, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "I was thinking," he said, his tone casual but his eyes serious. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Sarah smiled, leaning against the fence. "We really have. It's hard to believe how much has changed in such a short time." Jack nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "When I first met you, I never imagined this, never imagined we'd be here, like this. But I'm glad we are. I'm glad it's with you." Sarah felt her heart swell at his words. "Me too," she said softly. "I never thought I'd have all of this farm, this life, and you. It feels like everything I've ever wanted." Jack took a step closer to her, his hand gently resting on hers. "You deserve everything, Sarah. You've worked harder than anyone I know, and you've done it with heart. You've made this all possible. I just want to be here with you, for everything that comes next." The tenderness in his voice made Sarah's heart flutter. She had never felt more seen, more understood, than she did right now, standing beside him, surrounded by the life they had created together. "I couldn't have done it without you," Sarah admitted, her voice soft but filled with sincerity. "You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. You gave me the chance I needed to prove that I could do this. I'll never forget that." Jack smiled, his hand squeezing hers. "You didn't need me to prove anything, Sarah. You've always had what it takes. I'm just lucky to be part of this journey with you." As they stood there, their fingers intertwined, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Sarah realized just how much had changed. She had started this journey alone, uncertain and afraid of the future. But now, with Jack by her side, she knew that anything was possible. Together, they had faced challenges and overcome obstacles, and they had done it as a team. The farm was thriving, their relationship was growing stronger, and Sarah finally felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. But there was more to come, she knew that. This was only the beginning. They had big dreams, plans for expansion, new projects, and even more opportunities for growth. And Sarah knew, without a doubt, that they would tackle it all together. Life on the farm had never been easy, but with Jack by her side, it felt like nothing was out of reach. As the days passed and the seasons changed, they continued to build their future, one step at a time. Their love for each other and their shared vision for the farm were the foundations that everything else was built on. Sarah no longer saw the farm as just a piece of land she had inherited. It was a testament to everything she had fought for. It was a symbol of her strength, her resilience, and the love she and Jack had built. As Sarah and Jack walked hand in hand through the fields, the promise of tomorrow felt bright and full of hope. They had built a life together, and now they were ready to take on whatever the future held. Together, they knew they could face anything, and that certainty, that unshakable belief in each other, was all they needed to know they would always be just fine. Years passed, and the farm continued to flourish, its transformation a testament to the hard work, dedication, and love Sarah and Jack had put into it. What had once been a small, struggling piece of land was now a thriving business, a place of pride for them both. The crops were healthy, the animals were thriving, and the community that had once doubted them had come to respect and admire what they had accomplished. Sarah had come a long way from the uncertain woman who had inherited the land. She was no longer just a farm girl. She was a successful businesswoman, a strong leader, and most importantly, a woman who had built a life filled with love, purpose, and partnership. Jack, too, had grown alongside her. He had found a sense of peace on the farm, a place where he could leave behind the fast-paced world he had once known. The business side of things had always been his strength, but being on the farm, working the land with Sarah, had shown him a different kind of fulfillment. Together, they had created something that neither of them could have done alone. It was a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared vision for the future. But it wasn't just the farm that had blossomed over the years. Their relationship had deepened in ways neither of them had expected. They had started as business partners, two people thrown together by fate and circumstance. But over time, they had become so much more. They had become each other's rock, each other's support, and each other's home. Their love had grown stronger with every passing day, and it had been tested by the challenges they had faced together. They had been through so much: the early struggles, the setbacks, the doubts, but through it all, they had never wavered. Their commitment to each other and to the farm had never been stronger. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Watching the sun set over the fields, Sarah turned to Jack, her heart full. "Can you believe how far we've come?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. Jack smiled, his arm around her, pulling her close. "I can," he said softly. "I always knew we could do it, but it's more than I ever imagined. I didn't just build a life with you, Sarah. I built a future." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. She had always known that Jack was the one, but now, years later, with everything they had built together, she felt it more deeply than ever. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. "You've been my partner in every sense of the word, and I'm so grateful for you." Jack kissed her forehead, his touch gentle. "And I couldn't have done it without you," he replied. "We're a team, Sarah. Always have been, always will be." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the sky above. The farm stretched out before them, a symbol of everything they had worked for, everything they had achieved. And as they looked out over the land, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, they were ready for whatever it held. They had each other, and that was all they needed. The journey that had started with a simple act of kindness, an offer of land, had led them to a life filled with love, fulfillment, and purpose. Together, they had created something that would last, something that would endure long after they were gone. And as they stood hand in hand, watching the world around them, Sarah and Jack knew that their love, like the farm, would continue to grow and flourish, forever rooted in the land they had built together.